Hey, I'm Zapier from Opzer.co, and in this video, I'll share a dashboard we just built for a tax firm to help them stay on track during tax season. Stay tuned to learn how to simplify your tax season, gain visibility into the returns getting done, and easily collect documents from clients. In the pinned comments, I actually leave a free template to replicate the exact dashboard we built and that a client paid us thousands of dollars for. So let's get into it. What's the problem we're trying to solve here? This particular firm was tracking the returns for a big client. It was a law firm with hundreds of individuals, and they did the individual returns and sometimes trust or state returns for the entire firm. They were using Google Sheets, but the challenge was it was not really connected to anything else. They had to update things manually all the time. They had to kind of separately really track documents in another system, and they had to duplicate that sheet every year, and that's what they had been doing for years and years on end. The goal, what they wanted a system that was an easy experience for the client to provide their documents. They didn't want to compromise on that ease, or they didn't want to have like a long questionnaire for them. They also wanted the client to be able to see the status of all the taxpayers so they could avoid those nagging emails of where's my tax return, what's the status, etc. And also they wanted their team internally to see where things are at and be able to prioritize and act quickly as needed. The tools that they were using were ShareFile for storage and file storage, Slack for client collaboration. They were in a shared Slack channel to communicate with the client, Airtable, which we decided to use to build the dashboard, and Zapier for some automations that we couldn't do with Airtable itself. Let's look into what we built, and starting with some of the screens and what they look like. All right, so what you're seeing here, it's the incredibly simple and minimalistic form that we created. It's shockingly simple, but it's simply telling the client, hey, submit your files. Let us know if it's documents or if it's signature. Select the year associated with the return that you are uploading to, select the taxpayer, who is this related to, and then upload the files that are associated with that taxpayer and that year. That's it. I think one of the terms this particular client used to describe this is like drag and dump, right? They don't necessarily want their clients to be thinking about or like have these long questionnaires and answering a lot of questions. It's just like they know what they have to upload. Just give us these basic information and go ahead and upload your documents and send that our way. On this second screen, this is one of the views or links that were provided to the client so that they can have access to this at any given time. As you can see, we can see the individual returns, the name of those particular individuals, whether it's trusts, states, minors, adults, descendants, what are kind of the type of taxpayer in question, the year, what's the current status, and in this particular case, we're also keeping track of who's the staff in the firm that oversees, or it's like the admin that is assigned to that group of returns or individuals. You can also see some action steps that, as you'll see later on, the firm, the client, the accounting firm can provide, such that a client can see if we're awaiting documents or there's specific actions needed from the client, we can just let them know in this particular view. If they scroll, they actually have access to other information like federal due, state due, refunds, and specific dates around when things move forward, which, as you'll see later on, are things that are being automated within this system. Importantly as well, the team internally has several views to be able to see the work. For example, one of the ones that they look at often, it's looking at the returns by status to see the things that are still in progress, that are yet to be completed, etc. But also, and more importantly, being able to have views that relate to specific individuals in the firm. For example, if the partner needs to review specific work, we can adapt this view so that they only see the returns that are in that particular status, or potentially returns that are high priority, such that he can be aware of that and act accordingly. Alternatively, we might have an administrative role in the firm that might want to stay in touch with the client when they are waiting documents and follow up on a regular basis. There are some automations that can be done for that in that regard, but some clients are stragglers and still need a little push. They wanted also to see that list of clients that are in that status so that team member could easily just look at that view, that's their view, and they can follow up and see who they need to reach out to. Okay, so that's an overview. Now let's talk about some of the decisions we did with the data and why we chose a tool like this in the first place to replace the Google Sheet this firm was already using. As you saw, or maybe you missed it, but I'll share in a second, we decided to have 4 different tables. One for returns, one for documents submitted, one for the taxpayer, and one for the admin staff associated with specific taxpayers. This is something that in a community that I'm part of, that's for automation for accountants, a team member, a community member said that that stood out for him of how we thought about creating and tracking like 4 different tables. Because I think a lot of accountants are used to thinking in spreadsheets, and that's often a very 2-dimensional way of viewing things, especially when you're trying to build like a solution of your own. So why did we decided to use a tool like Airtable? First, it's relationships. When we have different tables, we can link data logically. For example, we have a taxpayer, but that taxpayer might have multiple returns. Or you can submit documents for different taxpayers. And that's not something that you can easily handle well in just a spreadsheet. In essence, a spreadsheet is a very 2-dimensional view of data. And with a database like Airtable, you can have a more 3-dimensional view with relationships. It's also worth noting that spreadsheets are very flexible, that's their benefit, but they can break easily. Someone come in, add in a row, adding a column. If a lot of people are working on it, there could be issues with that as well. And of course, when it comes to automations, the more structured you have the data, and if you have those relationships in place that I mentioned, you're able to connect to other systems more reliably and scale that solution potentially across the entire roster of the firm. With that, let's just take actually a deeper look into Airtable and what are the different components that we see as we try to build a interface or a base for a client. So as I mentioned, you see the 4 different tables at the top: returns, submissions, taxpayer, and staff. If I go to returns, or any table for that matter, you'll see a list of views we kind of saw briefly earlier on, and you can see that, for example, I can see here the client view that I had previously shared with you in this video, but also that is shared publicly with the client. There are 4 specific ways to manipulate this data that are important to talk about. One is if I want to hide certain fields. 2 is I want to filter certain fields. 3 is if I want to group fields in certain ways, or if I want to group the data in certain ways, or if I want to sort it. Why is this important? For example, since I'm sharing this with a client, I might have certain things that I don't want the client to see, like maybe priority or invoiced or internal notes, right? Maybe I have some notes I want to share with the team around this particular client, but I don't necessarily want the client to know about that. Also, you might say, hey, maybe I only want the client to see the things that are in progress. And if they're completed, maybe I could remove them, or you can kind of like work your way through what exactly is that you want them to see at any given time. Now, the base in and of itself is not the entire system. And we saw the form, we saw now the vase, but often you need a lot of logic behind it or automations to ensure that what needs to happen actually happens. And that when a new document comes in, when a new return comes in, all of the things that you want to ensure get done or are visible actually are. So let's look into some of the logic behind this base that we created for this client at a very high level. So what we're looking at here is just the primary automations and logic that was created for this particular system. You can see that when a new taxpayer comes in, we create a folder within ShareFile, their file management system. When new documents come in, we ensure that we create the folder if it's not created yet, and we upload those files specifically into the relevant year, the relevant taxpayer, and the relevant folder, whether it is a document or is signature or a tax return, so we can, because we ask for those things in the form, route that document to exactly where we need it and ensure that the team will always kind of be able to see a structured folder that's standardized across all clients. Also, we create the return if needed in the system so that we can keep track of that. As the return moves forward and we change those statuses, some of those statuses are changed manually and some of them actually change automatically. For example, if the client submits a document and its signature, then that would trigger a workflow to mark that tax return as signatures ready and update a date to know when that happened. We also have a simple automation that when we are awaiting for a client, that staff is pinged in Slack and tagged so that they know we're waiting on them for that particular return. And we have other things like when it's ready to sign, so we can let the client know, and when it is completed, so we also have a date around when that happened. So ultimately, what it all comes down to, it's a system where we don't need to worry about routing documents to specific folders because they're going to get to the place exactly where they have to go. And all that is synced. All the returns will have specific dates and statuses just so we know, how long they've stayed in a particular place, and we can assess where are the bottlenecks and where are the things that we need to act on. And clients are being both given an easy way to give documents, but also are given updates as the work progresses or if there's input required from them. To give you a little bit of a insider's view into what those workflows look like, we have built several of them within Airtable, and this is just one of them, where you can see that this automation is the one responsible for actually when a document comes in, which is when that form is submitted that we showed earlier. We assess if it's a document or it is signature to then go ahead and create those, either create or update those returns and update them to the appropriate status given that a document has been submitted. Whether it is, if the documents have been submitted, maybe we have a document submitted status, but if the e-signatures have been submitted, we might have a signature ready status as well, and there might be other things we want to trigger as a result of that. We also have here an example of using Zapier to overcome sometimes some challenges that we find where maybe Airtable automation features are not enough. And in this case, we wanted to integrate those documents with ShareFile, and we had to use Zapier for that. And this is just an example Zapier automation where when those documents come in, we find the taxpayer and the return that's associated with that. And then we go in and find the relevant year for that submission that just came in. We find the relevant folder within that, whether it's documents or e-signature, and we ensure we upload as many documents as the client submitted into that specific folder. As you can see, there are some advanced or intermediate, depending on how you look at it, functions that we're using here, like code for certain things that are just easier to handle that way, or loops, which is essentially a way to ensure that not only one document is submitted, but as many documents as the client submits. If they upload 2, this automation will ensure to upload those 2. If the client uploads 10, then automation will handle that accordingly. Now, what was the result of all of this work and logic and technical jargon that I've thrown at you? I want you to listen the words from the client that worked with us. They had the generosity to invite us to a mastermind where we shared this and other automation ideas with the group, and this is what she had to say.
Hey Isaac, it's Sandy. Thank you so much for presenting to our group. If you don't know if you don't have a known use case, but you're like, I know there's automation that can be beneficial to my firm, I just don't know what it is. I explained that that's how you and I work together, and that you walked me through it, that you quizzed me about my processes and my pain points, and we honed in on that specific use case. So thank you for your generosity. I believe it will result in business for you, and I hope that's the case. I very much appreciate it, and I am so excited about what you built for us, and my team is too, as is the client. So I am mindful of seeking opportunities for us to work together in the future, and so I'll be back. Thank you again for your generosity. It's always great to see you, and look forward to the next time. See ya.
She later said, after or during tax season, that's proving to be an ideal solution for them, and then it's paying dividends. And this is just one success story. There's actually another firm we built a tax document collection system for, And that particular owner said that they now look forward to tax season, which is extremely rare because it's something most people dread. So if you want to learn more about what we did for that other firm, check out this video. And with that, I'll see you on the next one. And until then, stay efficient.